My name's Paul Barrett. I'm the CEO of Resources. We're in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are exploring for tin and copper. At the moment, we're drilling ahead on the Mont Agoma prospect, and we'll be talking about that, I should think, right now.
I would have thought so. Why not? You put a press release. Let's do it. I mean, just on that, maybe just summarize the press release, and I'll dive in after that, if I may.
Yeah. So the basis of the press release is that we've been drilling since September last year. There was a short intermission during the problems with M23, but we're back to drilling. We've got 3 rigs drilling, and the overall program that we're doing is to explore the deeper part of the Mont Agoma prospect, i.e. we are moving our rigs out to the northeast and then drilling down underneath. And what we've found with hole 30, which is down on the flank, is a very good shallow tin zone. It's in the weathered zone, so it's very difficult to work out exactly visually what's going on, but the XRF Niton has shown us that there is considerable tin. And this is either a brand new zone or it's a zone that's been faulted in a kind of repeat sequence. Either way, it's pretty significant, especially considering that this lies outside the geochemical soil tin anomaly. So what we were thinking potentially that the limit of the mineralization was basically governed by this soil anomaly. Actually, it isn't. This tin that we found is outside the tin anomaly. So we think there's a lot of scope now for the northeast flank of Mont Agoma.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, that your kind of current structural or geological interpretations suggest there's a new mineralized zone, not a structural repeat or fault potentially.
Well, it's possible. I mean, we've still drilling. So this hole 30, unfortunately for mechanical problems, we had to terminate it around about 70 meters. So we're re-drilling it at the moment. And once we get down to 150, 200 meters, then we'll have a better picture of whether there is a fault repeating it or not. If it is a fault repetition and it is the tin being brought nearer to surface, then clearly, as our model suggests, that the deeper we go in the sequence, the better the tin. That if it's brought up to the surface in this area, we may, with a few more holes, be looking at a pretty decent tin mineralization zone. But we just don't know at the moment. We are still chasing it.
Okay, and given it does lie outside the existing anomaly, I mean, how extensive is the soil or geochem coverage on that eastern flank? And I guess, are you planning to expand surface work in conjunction with the drilling?
Well, not really. I mean, I think we've got enough in that northeastern area. Maybe if we go a little bit further north, there may be scope for infill, but it's not critical. What is critical really is to get these holes drilled. I think that the model that I'm thinking is working for the geochemical anomalies. In fact, the strong geochemical anomaly is on the ridge, whereby you have a soil, a regolith that is fixed, but as you go down the flank, and these are really quite steep flanks, the runoff and all the erosion and everything takes off the tin regolith. So there is certainly a good rationale for why there shouldn't be any geochemical anomaly on the flank, and we've just seen this tin. So all hands to the pump and drill more holes on that northeastern flank.
And can you sort of give us an indication of how many holes are immediately planned to chase this intercept, and what spacing you're using to define strike or dip?
Well, we want to drill 2 to the northwest. We've already got the pads cleared and ready to go, and we'd like to drill 1 behind, i.e. deeper than 30. We have to create a new pad for that because obviously this is something new. So we are chopping and changing and modifying the program as we go along, for a good reason. And so that's why we've got 3 fixed and probably another couple to the south as well. So there's enough to be going on with, for sure.
Right. Okay. And you've mentioned, I think, 3 rigs turning, or 3 rigs turning. Let's start with that one.
Yes. Yeah.
They are. Okay. And can you break down the deployment?
Fourth one isn't, but we have 3. One's on 29, one's on 30A, and one's on 31. So they're all drilling.
Okay. And what are you trying to? You just sort of mentioned, I guess, a little bit of it in terms of testing the eastern zone versus infill or deeper drilling. So what will they continue to do after that? I mean, that's the sort of immediate need.
Well, we just basically have a clutch of pads that we've got ready to drill on that northeastern area. And initially that northeastern area was basically going to be drilled so that we can drill underneath what we already have. I mean, we're seeing 29 is getting quite a decent amount of copper. So, I mean, I think we just, in a way, got to be patient, get all these holes drilled, and then we'll have hopefully a good story to tell.
Right, and just in terms of the kind of the working model that you've got, and I guess looking at your neighbour, etc., there's a lot of clues. In terms of, are you chasing subparallel shear zones, stockworks, vein swarms? I mean, what is the model?
It's really shear zones are
Right.
the controlling factor, and I think we've had in this area this broad shear zone. I mean, maybe a kilometre, 500 meters to a kilometre wide. You've had movement throughout geological time, and that's brought in the zinc, the copper, the tin, in reverse order, the tin, the copper, and the zinc. And so, it's a multiple phase of movement and of opening up and of allowing the fluids to come through. So it's a zone of weakness that basically has been exploited by the mineral-bearing fluids.
Right. And how do you kind of vector in on these kind of higher grade tin and copper zones? I mean, what geochem alteration vectors? What?
No, it's just purely. Well, I mean, a lot of it is visible in the core, but we have, obviously the niton is indispensable. Obviously, it doesn't give you assays, but it gives you, especially as I said, in this shallow weathered zone. You might miss that if you didn't have the XRF. You might just think, well, that's just oxidized, whatever. But in fact, it's got some significant tin in there. We can't really say the numbers, but I think it'll look okay.
Okay. Interesting. And are there any kind of, well, how does this discovery kind of influence your kind of broader view around kind of the regional prospectivity, any other targets at Bisie North, for instance?
Well, I think, if money was no object, I mean, what I would do would basically drill a whole sequence from southwest to northeast of holes over the whole of the two licenses, just to really cover it. And that's more of a research project, so you've got to be realistic, and you can't really do that. But that would be the way that you would fully understand how far this tin is going. At the moment, we're pushing it. We found some more. We'll push it a bit further. We'll see what happens. So it's a little bit incremental the way we're doing it. As I say, if it was going to be a big exploration project, then we'd sit back and say, drill 30 holes in a sequence. But I don't think we need to do that at the moment.
Well, obviously, I think what you talked about in the past was getting a maiden resource out. That would probably be a kind of major moment for the company.
Yes.
So
yes,
again,
that's right.
Where are you with that, and how will you be reporting it?
So we've engaged MSA to do that. They did the CPR for the admission for the reverse takeover, so they're fully aware of that. They've done work on alpha minerals as well, so they know the play, they know that part of the world. So they will review the micromine model, the subsurface model that we have, and they'll come up with an inferred resource number for the tin, the copper, and the zinc. I'm hoping by the end of this month to coincide. I'd like to put it in our annual report, which we have to have out by the end of June. So that's kind of, I'd like to do that. And then with the drilling that we're doing now, we continue and we aim to put an update out with the additional drilling and assays in September. And then,
okay, and just in terms of how that will be put together, in terms of like cut-off grades, for instance, will that differ between clay and Mont Agoma? Inferred versus, I mean, what are you assembling here? What are we going to be looking at?
Well, I think you'll be looking at inferred resource. I mean, Kalai is just tin, and Mont Agoma is copper, tin, and zinc. So those three will get split out.
Yeah.
What we do going forward, I mean, that will basically bookend the size of the project, with what we're seeing now, it will only get bigger. So,
But how do you report it? Because I think a lot of companies, like, they're going for, copper equivalent, gold equivalent, etc.
no,
You've got a choice,
I
haven't
did.
you?
I know, but it can be misleading. I mean, the thing is, if you have a lot of zinc, it's $2,000 a ton. I mean, okay, but it's not. You can't say that's an equivalent to X tons of tin. It's just misleading. So we won't be doing that.
Okay, interesting. And I guess, I'm trying to think what other things to do with the maiden resource.
We've got metallurgy work as well started.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that we have someone who is looking at. We've got a lab in Canada that's going to work on starting with the mineralogy, and then on the metallurgy to understand how, if we have Mont Agoma stripped at the top with copper and zinc, and as you work down into the tin, for the most part, how that can all be extracted and all be put together as useful commodities. So it's
Right. So basically saying they were testing oxides and sulfides. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
good way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any sort of, I guess, preliminary expectations around, or historic benchmarks, just in terms of trying to understand what you think the recoveries will be on the tin, copper, and zinc?
No, to be honest, not yet. It's too early.
Okay.
It's way too
Not yet.
early. Yeah.
Too early. I can but ask. But I guess and therefore, I guess, sort of testing process flow path and things like that. That's, again, a bit early until you understand what you've got.
It is. I mean, that'll come out of the metallurgy, and we'll do some work there. That's probably towards, I was going to say third quarter, but we're nearly in fourth quarter.
Okay, and again, as I don't mean to use the forward-looking statements or anything, but just and have you any kind of thoughts around things like ore sorting or DMS or any kind of pre-concentrate techniques, etc. Again, based on what you know, like locally.
Again, I think it's too early. I mean, I think
early, yeah.
once we get the metallurgy work, we'll be able to, kind of work out what the steps will be, next steps will be.
Okay. Well, I'll probably stay away from all of those wonderful things. And how are things in country? Obviously, we see a lot of news out of Alpha Men, things like that.
It has calmed down quite a lot. Yeah. So we're operating still out of Kisangani and our stores in Osakari. So the helicopters doing all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, touch wood, it's absolutely fine. I think the M23 situation has almost, in a way, entrenched back into Goma and Bukavu, the environs there, but and not out into the jungle. And obviously, Alpha Min's up and running as well. I mean, and Alpha Min have their own news. I mean, they've just been, they now have a new majority partner, the Abu Dhabi IRH. So yeah, it's quite interesting times.
Well, it's kind of interesting times, as you say, in terms of funding programs for projects like this. I think there seems to be a lot of alternative financing, shall we say, where industry is getting involved. Sovereign states are getting involved at a time where I think sort of juniors do need to work out, where the cash is coming from. It must be pleasing to sort of see.
Yes, I think we can. We had the strategic investor come in December, obviously liked the project, and I think the IRH acquisition of Alpha Min is showing that, the outside world. I mean, I went to see the IRH guys in Abu Dhabi in December, and they said, well, DRC, we're not bought into it yet. Clearly they are now. So, and I think the US getting involved as well. It's all positive, actually, for DRC minerals, critical minerals.
Yeah. And when you sort of look at what's happening with Alpha Men, I think it's going to be easier for people to kind of look at some comparables or valuation in relation to what you're doing and maybe how far behind them you are. It helps, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, clearly we are behind them because they're producing, but it's hopefully it's going to be a very similar story following through.
Okay, well, look, it's a quick call to you to sort of get a little update on how things are going and working on the ground. So I appreciate the update, and we'll see you soon, sir.
All right. Thanks, Matthew.